Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to Reddit Aliens. I'm John, and as always, thank you so much for being here. A good topic for you today? Let's do it. What's something that happened to you that is supernatural? Please remember to like, share, hype, comment, listen and ask for shoutouts, and subscribe. And Merry Christmas Eve to those who celebrate. One night I felt like someone was standing near the bed, so I rolled over to face my partner. As soon as I did, this something sat down hard on the bed with enough force it flipped me over my back. I was in complete shock and could feel something sat by my leg. The covers were tight, and I could see where it was sitting. It felt like it turned to look at me for a second or two, and then the pressure went off the bed. Just after this, I heard my partner's mum come out of her bedroom and go downstairs and put the TV and lights on. I managed to go to sleep. The next morning I told my partner and his mum, expecting them to laugh, and while my partner did, his mum went pale and asked what time. Turned out she experienced the same thing, hence why she went downstairs because she was so freaked out. In-law's grandma died, so the family all gathered and camped out at a farmhouse one last time before it was sold. It was the usual place we all gathered for family events, and so thus we did it one last time. One night, we were all out late at the fire pit, one big circle just hanging out. The front porch light started to blink off and on, as if someone was flicking the switch. We all kind of laughed, as that was Grandma's way of saying shut it down whenever we gathered at the farm before. Father-in-law didn't laugh, though. He went very quiet. Odd thing was that no one was in the house. They were either at the fire or retired to their trailer for the night, well past the house. Father-in-law quietly went into the house and disconnected the breaker. Again, no one else was in there at the time. The light stopped flickering after that, and we all eventually went to bed. Another time, many years before that, one of my close friends at the time died suddenly in a car accident. It shook everyone hard. I finally had a very lucid dream where he visited me at work and spoke to me and said he was fine. He was smiling and his usual self. I then asked him what it was like to be dead or wherever he was now. His smile turned into a grimace, as it seemed he wanted to tell me, but he couldn't. He wasn't allowed, and it wasn't for me to worry about or deal with at this time in my life. He didn't speak this, but I instantly knew his thought on the matter. He then faded away into a darkness, while at the same time that I asked my question, a loud deafening roar like a train approaching kept getting louder. I woke up, and my room was silent. I don't believe I've seen him in my dreams since. Maybe not a supernatural encounter per se, but certainly a profound one. Being awakened in the middle of the night by the smell of cigar smoke in my grandpa's haunted house. When he was alive, Grandpa used to smoke cigars. Shortly after he passed away, Grandma moved out of their room and started sleeping in another bedroom because Grandpa would visit her during the night. Their room became the guest room, and from time to time people who slept in the room would mention that they were awakened by the smell of cigar smoke during the night. I experienced it a few times. I tried to challenge Grandpa's ghost a few times, but there was never any other manifestation. My niece bought the house after Grandma passed away, and the haunting still continues after over 50 years. When I was little, I had an imaginary friend named Holly. She was slightly taller than me and had long brown hair and was covered in bandages. In hindsight, these were probably medical casts. We'd always play together in the garden, chasing bugs and talking. I'd mention her to my parents and do the typical, you have to set a plate for my friend at dinner time thing, and they'd always go quiet and look concerned but never spoke about my friend. At the top of our stairs, we had a wooden archway, and Holly would refuse to walk down the stairs. I'd have to carry her down, or we'd sit on our butts and bump down the steps one by one. I'd play with her daily until I was about 11 or 12, and then she vanished. When I was 16 or so, I was renovating the walls for my mom and using a wallpaper stripper. It applied hot steam to make the paper peel easy, and had gotten down to the base layer near the stair archway. Right there on the plaster was a carving of a family that a kid would do of 2 parents and 2 kids. It had written Mommy, Daddy, Jesse, and Holly. I immediately told my mom about this and took a photo of the carving. I no longer have it. It was saved on a Windows phone that bricked itself, to show her. She then told me the story of what happened before they moved in. A family had lived there with 2 daughters. One day, the youngest one, whose name was Holly, had fallen near the threshold at the top of the stairs and sustained a serious brain injury and bone damage. She was hospitalized and eventually died of severe internal bleeding on her brain. The family immediately moved, and after a few months my parents moved in, and eventually I was born. I think the spirit of the little girl lingered around in order to play and have fun, since she passed so young. I was at work. It was a small office and the door was open as usual. A man walked in asking for the boss. I'm not sure if it was just as he walked in or right before he did, but I had a sense of overwhelming dread emanating from him, like a shroud of darkness following him. He looked fine, was polite and friendly, so I pointed to the boss's room. He walked in, but the entire time he was there, I felt like he was just pure evil and could not be trusted. It felt like I needed to warn people of how dangerous he is. After he was gone, I had to say something. I told the boss, I know this is going to sound crazy, but then explained how I felt and that I've never felt like that before. He said not to worry. He was just being polite and had no intention of working with him, as people who knew him knew of him tricking and scamming people and stealing their hard work and putting it in his name. I never felt like this before or since. I've had dreams since I was little, and they wouldn't make sense, and the scene wouldn't play out. Example of one dream, I was sitting at my grandparents' kitchen table, and an older cousin walked in to check on me and say how my dad was concerned I was self-isolating, and said I wasn't and I'd be okay. I just needed a minute. Fast forward a couple of months, that scene happened in that way the morning my mom died, and second asking a sister-in-law for a sign she was okay. When she passed 2 weeks later, our smoke detectors went off, and in the middle of the night, 2 nights in a row. I said, insert sister-in-law's name, if that's you, you got it, you're okay. Didn't happen again. Until we moved, she made sure we knew she followed us. Was checking geothermal wells in a remote part of Nevada. Saw a Native American lady pushing a stroller in the middle of the road, honked at her, and she scrambled out of the way. Felt bad for scaring her as I drive by and wondered why she was there. There was a reservation nearby, but not exactly easy walking distance. Stop truck and look for her, no sign of her or the stroller. Area is flat desert with low scrub. Maybe if she moved real quick, she could have gotten off the road and laid flat on her tummy to hide, but what about the stroller? Didn't seem like there was enough cover or time to disappear like that. Rather anticlimactic, but spooked me at the time. When I was like 12, I remember having a fever and lying in bed with a bit of a sweat. Then vividly, I saw 8 people or whatever came into my room, really frantically. Lifted my mattress with me still on it, like 8 all around carrying it, carried me downstairs and put me like on the kitchen table. All I remember seeing is like a really, really bright light in front of me, blinding like at the dentist office, but blurry too. And then them all around kind of looking down at me doing some shit, but it's all super, super blurry. And then I kind of have like no recollection of what happened after, and I think I walked back upstairs, but I don't know, and it's not like I had the memory of walking back up the stairs. Then I kind of just felt like I appeared in the next day. I don't know, man. Anyway, the following night as well, sleeping in my parents' bed with them, because now I'm freaked the hell out. I'm lying in bed, and like a tall silhouette, just black figure of a man in a top hat and like trench coat, but with a really circly head, walked into the room, and it's like its head locked onto me and would rotate like a damn owl head to keep locked onto me while walking with intent toward my side of them bed, and threw the damn covers over me and started kicking my feet out, then peeked out, nothing there. I feel like I must have been delirious with a bad fever, legit seeing shit, but damn, those memories burned into my brain. I told my mate about the first one, and bro told me I got abducted, and I still think it was the fever, but aliens, if you did abduct me and did shit to me, that would explain a lot for real. Alright, again, just the season of thanks continues, so I want to give a shout out to Lanaya Batty. Thank you for listening, and to each and every one of you. Again, I do read the comments just about every day. If not, I do like a 2-day roundup. So, like Santa Claus, I'm reading my list and checking it twice, so don't want to miss any of you. And I shared some with my wife about some of the people that have expressed their listening to the videos to sleep or relax or cook or clean or do projects. And just to be a part of your lives is, it really is a privilege. And it's something that's not lost on me at all. And I'm grateful for it. So thank you guys very much. This little project is, 5.5 years going, which is crazy. But we love it. So thanks again. And we'll see you soon. Ages and ages ago, I was visiting a town somewhere in the middle of Germany with a group of kids. We spent some time at the town square. It had a fountain, some park banks, and it was a nice place to wait for the rest of our group while we were doing a sightseeing tour of the nearby church. Some local teenagers came by and started throwing water bombs at us, and at me, the only adult in the group. And suddenly, while watching the water bombs flying, time slowed down so much that it seemed like the water bombs were hovering mid-air, and I somehow moved out of their path, being able to totally avoid getting struck and wet. I don't remember any conscious thought on where to move to be safe. It was like something moved me like a chess piece. The teens were so impressed that they stopped attacking us and moved on. Sometimes, very, very rarely, I can tell what's going to happen in the next few seconds to minutes. Trivial things like it's going to rain, though. There is no cloud to be seen in the sky, or when Cardinal Ratzinger was announced as the new Pope Benedict. I already knew it a few seconds before the bishop, or whatever he was, announced it. About 2 years ago, I was up early taking pictures of the sunrise, etc., in a beautiful park near where I live. It was summer solstice. I took many amazing pictures this morning, but the one that was strange is that there were several where, despite using no filter or any additional assistance, I appeared transparent in several of the pictures. No, they weren't a reflection, and it wasn't a refraction of light. The trees behind me, the bushes behind me, were visible, like through my body and face. No, I can't post them. Phone was stolen about a year ago and lost everything. Wish I could. During my Psychosis episode in 2019, I started seeing subliminal messages sometimes, either TV, radio, or books. I went to the park near where I grew up to chill. There were these wooden benches outlining a soccer field that was a very popular hanging out spot ever since I was a kid. They'd been there for at least 20 to 25 years. People would crave stuff on these benches, live messages, symbols, drawings, etc. That day I saw a very explicit message that terrified me. Rosa, 24, house to live. Rosa is the name of one of my dearest friends. My heart started pounding, felt a sense of great danger, just like a spider sense in Spider-Man, LOL. She doesn't live in the area, so I couldn't have been someone that knew her. I needed to talk to her, but my phone was dead. I biked to my house and called her, and she just laughed it off. I spent the next 24 hours thinking about her, sending her positive vibes and such. I told one of my friends what had happened, and she was very curious. She wanted to see the carved message on the bench that triggered all this. I agreed to go to the park with her, but only after 24 hours had passed. So that was 2 p.m. the next day. After calling Rosa to make sure she was okay, we went. And my heart stopped when we arrived. The bench was gone, fences surrounding where it once stood, a massive wooden bench that could sit at least 20 people that had been there since my childhood was removed the day after it triggered a panic attack. The odds of this happening are infinitely small, and I still can't completely accept it to this day. This was a coincidence. Then a month or so later, the real psychosis happened. Police saw me in crisis in the street. As soon as they approached, I closed my eyes and kept them closed for the following 2 to 3 hours. I will never know what truly happened during that time, since I had no visual cues, but my other senses were very sharp. They picked me up and put me in an ambulance, but I could swear that during the transportation felt like we lifted off the ground. The staff were joking about bringing me on Mars. Later in the hospital, I finally opened my eyes. I was in a dark room with other patients. There was this impending sense of doom, like something really bad was about to happen. Nurses were taking shifts watching us, switching every hour or so. One was dark-haired and mean, and the other blonde was very kind. I was trying to convince the nurses that we needed to leave before it was too late. I also remember calling my dad from the phone line in the room and him picking up. I could hear him, but he couldn't. Later they brought me for an MRI scan. I felt like I needed to close my eyes for this, so I did. And when they laid me down for the scan, I felt like I was brought down, like I was lowered to a lower floor, then brought back up. I remember all of this vividly. No hard drugs involved, just daily weed. Again, I will never know what truly happened, and I'm totally fine today. I quit weed and alcohol, and I take no medication. I used to see ghosts as a kid. I can feel their presence, though. It gets oddly cold when they leave for good and won't be back. Even on a hot day, the air is colder when nobody is there. However, this is usually with those who are at peace. When they pass, it gets cold like a rainy day in the middle of winter type of cold, when someone feels as if they had things to do before they leave. Final goodbyes are nice, though. They're warm like a hug, and you feel some peace when that warm feeling comes and eventually passes. It's a weird thing to experience, because it feels as if there's a person in the room, but there's absolutely nobody there. Like someone right behind you, but each time you turn around, they just stay hidden in your shadow. As a young child, I had recurring nightmares. I was following my family down an aisle in a large expanse of mattresses. They took a left at a T intersection, and I decided I could catch up if I slipped between the mattresses. I'm cutting through when suddenly a clawed hand punches through one of the right and grabs me. I scream and it starts to pull me down into the hole. I then was awoken by my mother. The thing is, that is always how it ended. My mom would always come and wake me up because I was literally screaming. But the thing that still creeps me out a little has to do with the fact that she never failed to shake me awake. See, I never woke up on my own. Once I remember my head almost being through the hole before she got me. Eventually the dream stopped, but for my entire life, every once in a while, I think about what would have happened if she didn't come wake me up. One night I was driving home from North Dakota to Nebraska, and I was passing through a section of South Dakota that sits between the Rosebud and Pine Ridge reservations. I was in the absolute middle of nowhere, no lights for miles, perfectly clear winter sky, amazing stars, and all of a sudden, a meteor burns up in the sky above, turning the entire sky green for a few seconds. I stopped and just thought about how lucky I was to see that. As I kept driving, I come up to a small town where the only intersection is a four-way stop in the middle of town. I assumed it was a ghost town because there were no lights on of any kind, but as I came to a stop, my car lights lit up the area around me, and people were just walking around in the dark, acting like it was normal. It's the middle of the night, maybe 10 or 20 degrees max. Needless to say, I didn't stop again until I got to town with streetlights. I think those areas are a little more wild or spiritual. Wounded Knee was near there, and that part of the US had terrible atrocities commuted against the natives. I think it's left its mark on that place. My wife's granny is super religious or spiritual. Just about anyone who's ever spent any real amount of time around Granny has had something supernatural happen at least once. For instance, on multiple occasions in the middle of the night, I have heard her having a full conversation with some unknown person. She was in her room, where I know she was alone, but anytime I stepped into the hallway to get a better listen, she'd go silent until I went back into my room. Now, this is despite her door being closed, the hallway being dark, so I wasn't casting a shadow under the door, and her being completely deaf and having no way to hear me coming. So yeah, that's Granny. But anyway, my wife told me this one story about something that happened before she was even born. One night my in-laws were asleep in bed. My mother-in-law's mom, Granny, sometimes liked to watch people sleep. I know, and I don't know. So she stood in their doorway, watched them, until my father-in-law woke up. When he woke up, Granny ran over to him and grabbed his hand and began to furiously pray over it. My father-in-law, understandably creeped out, snatched his hand back and yelled at her to get out of his room. The next night, my father-in-law went out to the bar and ended up getting into a fight. The guy pulled a knife and went straight for his heart, but my father-in-law's hand shot up and the knife went through it and only a little into his chest. It was the same hand Granny had prayed over. My wife's family has so many stories like that, it's crazy, and most of them involve their granny in some way. When I was about 17, I went to go live with my dad. I had a cool teen pad in the basement, 0 windows, so it was pitch black with the lights off. One night I turned the lights off and go to bed. I feel something walking on my mattress, futon on the floor. I thought nothing of it. So much so I just thought it was the dog, even though I don't recall her being there. Get up to let the dog out? No dog. Go to sleep. This proceeds to happen every fucking night for the next 7 months. Start sleeping with the lights on. Still can feel and see the imprints on the bed of some creature walking onto my bed and hovering inches from my face. Dad is super religious, so I don't want to tell him for fear of him freaking out about the devil. Oversleep one day and wake up to an angry phone call from my dad lecturing me about being responsible. I'm sitting at the edge of my futon mattress. In front of me is another futon that actually has the frame that I kept on the couch position, my idea of cool as a kid. Across from that, by about 3 feet, is the closet that leads to the water heater. As my dad is yelling at me on the phone, I'm sitting there groggy, waking up and angry. The door to the closet flies off the hinges with great force and slams into the arm of the wooden futon frame. I'm so stunned I can't even scream, but I jump immediately. My dad on the phone hears the slam and proceeds to scream at me, asking what that was. I stammer and tell him the door fell off the hinges and hit the futon. I know he's going to be angry about the giant couch arm-sized hole that is now in the door. He answers, of course, with, "Doors don't just fall off their hinges." I'm now grounded for destroying property and lying. Now, the entity is more comfortable. It gets closer, stays longer, and doesn't wait till night to come out. I'm in my own personal grounded hell with this thing. I didn't think it was too malicious because the end of the interactions is abrupt. One night, it is on my bed, presumably staring at me. Again, I can see its imprint, but can't actually see it. My go-to coping was to just pretend it wasn't happening. I just ignored it as best I could. One night I decided it didn't want to be ignored anymore, and physically grabbed my arm and yanked it up. I ran as fast as I could out of that room. It then followed me up the stairs, could clearly hear the footsteps. It was the middle of the night. My dad was sleeping on the living room couch. I squeezed in next to him, thinking if it tried to actually hurt me, I could scream and my dad would wake up. The creature got to the top of the stairs. It did not come near me. Instead, its footprints went into the kitchen, where I heard a crash. My dad didn't wake up. I was terrified. After the crash and realizing this thing can actually leave my fucking room, nothing ever happened again. It's almost like it felt bad for scaring me and just wanted to validate its existence or something. Still terrified me though. Flash forward to about 10 years later. I'm now an adult and on a road trip, just me and my dad. He's separated from his wife and has taken the room in the basement. He confides in me during this bonding time that he feels something walking across his bed at night. I live in a small village in Louisiana. Most women I know have had supernatural experiences of varying degrees. My mom's mom, saw a ghost boy in her family home. My great aunt, Mama's sister, heard God's voice at a cemetery, warning her to stay in her car. My mom heard the disembodied voice of a little girl giggling and yelling, "Mama," in Mama's family home. Those are all pretty par for the course, could easily be explained away by them mishearing things or having a brief hallucination. For me, it was a little more substantial. I have crazy vivid dreams, the kind that have so much detail in them that my more superstitious friends and family believe they aren't dreams at all, just glimpses into potential past lives. However, they've always just been dreams to me. Sure, they were more realistic in ways they shouldn't have been, but dream science is weird. Then, when I was 12, I had a dream that came true. Like I said earlier, I live in Louisiana. We have lots of storms, especially in the spring and summer. One day, in that weird week when it's too warm to be spring but not humid enough to be summer, there was a huge thunderstorm. I fell asleep on the couch listening to it. I dreamed that a tornado happened near Mama's family home. The tornado wrecked her rose bushes, tore down her willow tree, and ripped off shingles in a specific part of the roof. The next thing I know, my mom is standing over me and rushing me to get dressed. She says Mama's house was hit by a tornado. We drive to her place, and the yard looks exactly like it did in my dream. Same wrecked rose bushes, same torn up willow tree, and in the exact spot in my dream, missing shingles. I told Mom and Mama what I dreamt, and that's when they told me about the weird thing that happened to the women in our family.